Welcome to People Love Process. This movie is our 9th episode in my over-the-shoulder vector building series. And this one's a little special to me because at heart, I'm kind of a geek. I grew up on the original Star Wars movie. It came out when the summer after 6th grade for me. And I love Darth Vader. And I'm actually known from the 6th grade class that I could draw Darth Vader in about 15 seconds. And so I was going through my archive about a month ago, and I had done a course for LinkedIn Learning called the 21-Day Drawing Challenge. And one of those days of drawing was to focus on linear line drawing, meaning one continuous line, and Darth Vader was my theme. This was the exact drawing that I had created for that course, but I never had done anything with it, and I forgot about it. That goes back quite a few years now. And so I wanted to build this out. And of all types of vector artwork, this is the easiest type of thing to build. The challenging part with linear line illustration or design is that kind of mapping out the pathway. And I'm going to do a creative challenge later on in about a month or two, where the challenge is going to be for you to create a linear line drawing. And it's a fun style. And I first noticed that this style was coming back into popularity back in I'd say around 2003 or so. And so for a whole year, I forced myself, anytime that I was doing any kind of drawing, I would draw in a linear style. And that's how I got the hang of it. And it was popular for about a decade within illustration, did all kinds of projects for agencies. I was even approached to do a McDonald's commercial. It's just that we were going out of town on vacation, so I had to pass it up. And then I saw what they ended up using. I'm going, oh man, I wish I could have done that. It would have been a lot of fun. So a lot of cool projects over the years, but this is what I drew in that kind of mindset of a linear line style. And we're going to go ahead and build out this artwork. So let's go ahead and turn on the layer. This is the scan here. And by the way, remember, all of the exercise files for my over-the-shoulder vector building movies are all free. So just go to the link provided in the description below for this video, and you can download it. And I encourage you to give this a try. Try to build this design. Eventually, I'll show you how to pull off that style and approach it, because it's kind of a different way of thinking to do that, but it is a lot of fun. We're also going to use one of the tools that, in my opinion, is one of the best tools Illustrator has developed. It wasn't half-baked. They really thought through it well, and that's the width tool, because we want to give ours a thick and thin approach when it's all said and done. So I'm just going to set this to about 15%, and I'm going to go ahead and lock it. Now, I'm not going to build this with the width tool right out of the gate. We're just going to build it. The easiest possible building in vector format is to use strokes. So that's all we're going to do. So let's go to our graphic styles. I have some saved here. So I'm going to click on it. And the key to a linear line drawing is you have a start and you have a finish. That's why they make such a great thing to use in animation, because you can make it look like it's auto drawing yourself. So we're going to start up here in his helmet, and it's going to end up finishing down here in his right cheek on Darth Vader. So let's go ahead and grab the pen tool. Once again, we're just building paths. So this is super easy to discern. Wherever it comes to a point, gets a point. Those are easy. As you're coming into the curve, you'll figure out where to place your smooth anchor point. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. We don't have to be zoomed out so far. So as it comes into here, you pull it out. Now, as you're building, if you realize, hey, my location isn't that ideal, if you hold the space bar down before you let up on your mouse, you can reposition this anchor point anywhere you want. I didn't know that. I'd been using Illustrator for 15 years, and it was an engineer, Niraj, a friend of mine at Adobe. He's on the Adobe type team now. But he's one that showed, let me show you the space the space effect, he called it. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So you can reposition it with the space bar, and then you can continue building it from that point moving forward. And I just thought that was pretty amazing. Now, on this design, I'm not building all the curves as I'm building the path. It's just easier to focus on where they come to a point, get a point, and then I'll go back and finesse those with the Bezier handles. So this one, if we go into this to form this whole curve, I'm probably going to put one around the 12 o'clock position. If you think like a clock, come down wherever it comes to a point, gets a point. These are easy, and I'm not going all the way here because I'm going to add thickness, so I'm going to put it right about there. Then we'll go into this curve. I think we could form that curve kind of like that. This will go down to a point. This will go into a curve here, but I think I'll put it here and pull it out like that. And we'll have one here, and I think we can form all of this from this corner. We'll go here, and then this is like a curvature. So if you think on the side, we could put it here. As it comes out here, I think we can form that from this corner as well. And then here is where I'll go straight because I'll use subtle rounding to kind of create this bend right here. I think it'll be easier. And we could probably do the same right here. So I'm going to go straight here like that. Then where this comes to a point or comes to a curve, we'll just curve it. Come down to this point. And this is the part that's a little tricky because I want to get this spacing really well. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to stop here like that so you can see the path so far. Let's go back and finesse these curves, then we'll jump back down to his mouth or the breathing apparatus, as it were, for Darth Vader. It's like he's a villain with asthma. Okay, there's rumors out over the last few months, actually, that they want to redo Star Wars, the original, from the ground up and change all the characters, meaning not necessarily establishing their look like it is from the classic movie. And wow, I don't know how people react to that. I think it'd be cool if they go back to Ralph McQuarrie's concept art and style it more like that, because I kind of liked his iteration of Darth Vader. I thought it looked a little more sinister than what they ended up making Darth Vader look like. So in that respect, that might be a good way to handle it. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it has such a loyal fan base. It'd be... we'll fix this because we broke that. So we want to turn it back to a smooth, and you can do that up here in these controls. And if you don't have this bar turned on, go to Window and make sure you have the control bar checked, because that's a great time saver to do a lot of things. We'll grab this ghost handle. By the way, this is showing up because I have Astute Graphics Vector Scribe plugin. And so when you work with vectors, specifically strokes like this or shapes, it'll show these ghost handles. And so I can just grab it and go. That's why I love plugins. It makes the process so much faster. And now you can see these ghost handles. So I can grab that and get that curve figured out. I can grab the path. And by the way, Vector Scribe existed like at least 6 or 7 years before the Illustrator team decided to rip off the same features but integrate them in a less intuitive and uncustomizable way. Uncustomizable meaning if I double click on the anchor point tool, nothing happens. And I've shown you this before, but if I go down here to this specific tool is Path Scribe, but it's if I double click on it, look at how much stuff you can customize. And I've asked Adobe at times over the years, I go, why don't you just give the ability for pro users to customize stuff like, well, we don't want to confuse the user. I go, it might confuse a noob, but just by default, have it turned off, but let a pro go into the prefs, turn it on, and customize it however they want. And they just don't want to do that. They don't think that way, mainly because they don't use their own software that they develop. So that's probably the biggest problem, especially with that team. 0 people on the Illustrator team actually use the app to create with. Otherwise, they'd know that a lot of these requests that users post on the feedback forum online would make complete sense. But unless it's a $1 million ad agency who pays Adobe, like I know the largest ad agency in the world as of 5 years, maybe 6 years ago now, pays annually to license Creative Cloud for all their employees globally. For this ad agency pays about $40 million. So guess who's going to get most of the attention on new features? It'll be them, not so much the individual user like you or me. And that's unfortunate. Now we're going to come over here, and this is where we can select this and add around there. I can select this and add around there like that. Now we're back down in the mouth. So we have all those curves built in. That's why I tend to start with the easiest part. This looks a little wonky. Let me see if I can improve this. Just looks a little rigid there. I think that looks better. Okay, so on his mouth, what I want to do is I want to establish these lines, but I want to keep this kind of even. So what I'm going to try to do is to do this with shapes. So I'll figure out a shape that works in terms of the width, and we'll establish the angle. It could probably be just a little thinner width-wise, something like that. I think that would probably work. We'll copy it. We'll bring it all the way over here like that. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Actually, I need to bring it over here. Then we'll have 3. So I'll select these 2. And if you go Option, Command, B, you'll blend those shapes. Now, if you don't remember that command, just select each shape and go to the blend tool. You can click on it, and then you can blend it that way as well. But we just automated it like this. Now, if I want to edit this, like right now there's 4 steps, I'll double click the blend tool, go to specify. We only need 3, click OK. We'll have to expand this to get access to the raw vectors. You might have to ungroup it like that. And now we have access. So we've figured out the spacing on all of those. So what I want to do now is I want to use the shape blending tool. So I'm going to go, let's see, what's the first thing I want to do? I want to, we'll start here. So we're going to get that angle. I'm going to go up to about there. Then I'm going to go down to about there. Then I'll go to the anchor point tool and I'll bend this up just to get the top edge of the ventil. I don't even know what they call it, just his mouth area, the detail, these little slot things like that. And we're going to close the shape kind of like this. I'll select all these shapes, go to Pathfinder, we'll unite those, make sure they're a compound. Select this, bring to front, and if I color it, fill it with a color so it's on top. Select this, and we'll edit that. So now we have all those shapes figured out. That's fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure, once again, once you run a Pathfinder method, it's going to revert to group. So I change this back to a compound. And this is where, let's see, I think I'm going to start over here. And I'm going to go, it's going to fuse to that line, but that's okay. We'll just adjust it afterwards. So I'll go like that because I don't want a perfect straight line. And now what I want to do now is, since it fused to the rest of the line, I'm just going to break it. So we just have this. I'll go into isolation mode. And I'll just close that shape like that. And this is where I'll use the, actually we'll use the scissor tool, because I'll go ahead and cut this. I'll cut this like that. We don't need, get rid of that. Okay, I'll select these now, go to the shape building tool, and this is where I can just delete this, delete this, delete this, delete this, and not that, I don't want to get rid of that, delete that. Then I can go in here and, actually, before I do that, let's do this. I'm going to cut these like that. Then I can go in here, select all these, go to the shape building tool. Oops, we don't need these either. Let's get rid of those. I'm kind of obsessing over this part because it'd look really weird if it's not, it's so mechanical. It needs to be a little more precise than being so organic. The drawing's forgiving, so we'll go to the shape building tool, and now we'll focus on just these little spans that we don't need. So we'll just get rid of that and this little part over here, like that. Now, none of these are connected, so I'll go ahead and Command J. Yes, there is a join tool, but it just wastes time going to get that. It's easier just to drag select, Command J, and that fuses or welds these pieces together. It's just a lot faster. You'll see a lot of videos. You can use this to do that. Well, one, yeah, you can, but it doesn't mean it's faster. So I always use the method that tends to be faster, and this way it is. Just Command J is super easy. And J just stands for join, so we're just doing a join there. Then we can join it to our main path like that. And now we have the mouth part built. So I'll keep building the rest of this design. Sometimes I'll use the arch tool here just so I can create it, those curves as I go. You know, it's another nice tool by Astute, so we can do that. I might curve this one just a little bit like that, rather than being perfectly straight. And then we can go back to the pen tool if we want. We can do this. And this is going to be a little different because I'm going to handle this by squaring this off. I won't do a circular kind of approach there. I'll go here, then I'll switch back to that arch tool because I want a little curve here. And we'll curve it like that. And we can continue it here. I might curve this out just ever so slightly. Do his cheek here. Put a subtle curve in there. Put a subtle curve in there. Go back to the pen tool. I think we can control this by putting one anchor there. One here. We'll come back and finesse the top. This will swing down all the way to this corner. Then we'll go to this corner. It'll bend into a curve. It'll come around here. And I think right about there is where we'll continue it. It'll come down to this base on his side. I can switch back to that plugin called Subscribe that gives me that ability. Switch back to the pin tool. This is like a clock, 6 o'clock position. Pull this out. Corner gets a corner. Point comes to a point, that is. And then this goes up to here. And we're going to go right about there. These will be pretty much straight because, again, this is part of the mask that's mechanical, and I'll square it off because it'll be easier just to use rounding to get that effect on those. Come here, and then I'll go back to the curvature tool because I don't, or not the curvature tool. This is the, what do they call this? Arch by Points tool. It's a plugin by Astute Graphics called Subscribe. Really awesome. And the thing is, they never intended people to build with that tool. It was for doing certain types of things. And I was hired to do a book cover for, well, a friend of mine hired me to do a book cover for a book he wrote, and he's self-publishing. And he wanted this snake graphic, or that's the idea I came up with on the cover. And so I used that tool to build all of it. And I'm like going, wow, this really works great. And I recorded a video and sent it to Astute, and they're going, well, we never thought people would use it like that, which is always kind of awesome when you see a potential use for something. Now, this one, again, I'll put the next curve right here, and we'll adjust those Beziers to get the rest. Go to this corner, and then we'll end it right there. So now all we're going to do is go back and finesse those. So even if I'm not talking and trying to explain this to you, it goes even faster. And if I'm not telling stories. So we got most of the artwork done already. We're going to go back and finesse the curves. So I would consider that first pass a rough build. And then I'd come back in on this one. You can go to anchor point tool. You can pull this out, get access to that anchor, finesse these curves. Now we're going to finesse. You can see this broke it. So if you break it, just go up here, click smooth, and you can fix it in the control. That's why having that control bar on is really helpful. And then we'll finesse this curve that goes into the bottom cheek, kind of like that. This one's a little wonky, so I might pull this down instead. Yeah, that looks better. Like that. We'll go down here. I think that looks good. That looks good. Focus on, let's see, is this worked out? I think something like that. And then I'm going to pull this in this way because I kind of like how it flares a bit on that side. Like this. And if it keeps wanting to snap to its own path, just go Command U to turn off Smart Guides, because I have that on almost all the time. But when it gets in the way or it tries to snap when you don't want it to, then just toggle it off. Command U to toggle on and off as you work. And we'll go ahead and select this. I'll grab this Bezier handle to finesse the bottom part of the neck of Darth Vader. Adjust this curve because we don't want this to be perfectly straight, like that. Then we'll adjust this to get that working. I believe, let's zoom out and scrutinize it, make sure we have everything the way we want it to. I think we have all of our base vectors established now. Now I'm going to go back in and round those things that I didn't want to build or try to build that round as I'm building the baseline. Oh, I just noticed we need to adjust this. So we'll pull that out more. We'll pull this one out more. Maybe back a bit, kind of like that. That looks good. Here on this one, we'll take this and we'll just round it because it's easier doing these rounds by building it square first, like that. That looks good. And we'll go here on this one. We'll do the same thing. This will be rounded. That looks good. And now comes the part of using the width tool in Adobe Illustrator. And this is the point where I always want my raw vectors to go back to, because sometimes the width tool can be a little wonky. It's not absolutely perfect. There's certain aspects to it that are going to kind of freak out at times. And it's not easy to reset. So I always want my original art to go back to. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer. We'll turn off our sketch. And we'll just do width, because now that we have our stroke established, it's good to figure out your base size of a stroke. And this one, I believe, is 0.75. Yeah. We want this thicker. So you want to establish what is the thinnest area in your linear line. And on this one, I think 5 is going to work. Notice it comes to these dagger sharp points, and at times it'll truncate like this one. We don't want that. So we want to turn on round corners. That'll improve the aesthetic overall. And then, now that I'm looking at this, we might even go 4. Yeah, I'll go with 4 as the base. And then where it comes to termination at the beginning and at the end, we don't want it to be a flat cap, which is this. We want it to be a round cap, so we'll choose that, and that just makes it look better. Now that we have this, this is where I would probably save a copy of this. So I would clone it, Command-C, Command-F, and I would just move it up here to my X layer to save it. Now that I have that, I'd actually save the file. So let's go Command-S, we'll save the file. And I'll go ahead and go to the width tool. Now the width tool, a stroke is just a stroke. It has no fill. It's just a stroke. But the width tool allows you to give volume to that stroke. So let's focus on the first part of our path here. I want it to start out thin, but as it goes around this corner here, I want it to get thicker. So wherever you determine, let's say you want it to get thicker here, you click and you pull it out, and you can visually control the thickness like that. So it starts off thin, and if you wanted this to get thinner, you could come back here and diminish that so it gets thinner as well. I found that it works best to control these strokes based off of your anchor point locations, for the most part, not completely. So I like how this goes thin, thick, back to thin, and then I want it to get thick as it comes to this corner. So we're going to go right to this anchor point corner, and I'm just going to beef it up. But notice that overlap, that's just the way it is. That's how it works. And you can break this pretty easy, but I wouldn't want to go too thick. So I'm just going to get a little thick, maybe right about there, like that. I think that looks good. It comes over here, and we'll make this a little thinner, like that. So it goes from thick back to thin. And then I want it to get thicker, so I'll add thickness here, and I think doing it right in the middle. Now, if I click and pull, it'll do it from both sides. If I hold down the Option key, it'll do it from one side or the other. So Option, it'll go to the right here. If I hold down, let's see, what's the other one? Oops, let's Command-Z, like that. If I pull from this side, so based off of whatever side you pull to, whether the left, if you hold Option down, it'll only expand from that side, like that. If I Command-Z and go back and I decide here to move to the right and I hold Option down, then it'll only do it from the right side. So that's how you can control it. Doesn't always have to be from the center out on both sides. All the time. This gives you even more flexibility to control the dynamic of your thick and thins as you're creating it. Now I want it to stay kind of thin down here, so we'll go down here and we'll minimize this just a little bit like that. And as it swoops up to the top of his head, this is the kind of the primary area of Darth Vader's helmet. So we want it to get a little thicker here. So we'll make it a little thicker here, kind of like that. And then as it gets into the back area, into this corner, we want to get thicker. So I'll make that a little thicker, like that. I think that looks pretty good. And maybe we make this a little thicker. We had it a little thinner, so I'm going to adjust that. That looks fine. Then we come into here, and now that I'm looking at it, this, I guess that curve's okay, but I want it to be thicker going from the base here. So I'm going to pull this out, hold Option down, because I only want to do it from the inside. And this is where the tool kind of fails at times. So you can see we're only going to the inside, but because of that, those overlapping shapes are going to create these little horns on the other side, and you're going to end up with something like that. So we're going to Command Z and not do that. We're going to just do it from the middle out on both sides. That way, those will be consumed once we expand this into actual shapes like that. So I just wanted to show you that. Just be aware of that. Don't go too fast that you commit to it, because it's really hard to undo these things as you're going. So just take your time. Don't go, once again, too fast. Just do the best job you can. Now, here, I think that's fine. This curve's looking a little weird, so I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to adjust this. Even though I try to do this in the path, yeah, I think that looks better. So I'll go ahead and do that. Maybe I'm going to not expand, but make this a little beefier. Yeah, that looks good. Now we're going into the eyes. So I want it to go straight here, or into this thinness, but I want to make this just a little bit thicker there. That looks good. And then as it comes out of the thin part here, swings into this is where I want it to kind of get beefy as it goes into the point of his nose. So I'm going to go here. And if I select this, you can see we have an anchor point there. So this is where I'll focus my width tool right on that anchor point, like that. So we make it thick, gets thin again, right into his nose. Then as the nose comes down, I want the nose to get thicker. So this is where I'll make just the center part of the nose a bit thicker, like that. As it gets down into the base of the nose, we'll go ahead and hold Option down to get thickness here without adding to the outside by holding Option down. That looks good. And let's see, we're going to come down into the breathing apparatus, and this is where I want to add some thick and thins just to make it, okay, here's a good example of it wigging out. Yeah, that doesn't look good at all. So this is an area where for some reason it's wonky here. Let's zoom in. Maybe we have some, do we have 2 anchor points? Oh, that's what we have. Okay, so I'm going to select this anchor point. Okay, you can see we have 2 anchor points. So I'm just going to move this over right about there. And then we're going to select the Remove Anchor Point, the minus anchor point tool. Hold Shift down and click on this anchor point to Smart Remove it. Notice it's going to wig this out. We'll just go with it at this point. We'll select this and go to stroke. Yeah, that, I think that's not going to like that. And this is the part of the tool that, you know, they've never gone back and refined this, so it doesn't do this kind of stuff. So we might just have to, yeah, this really screwed up. Okay, let me undo that. I'm going to go back. I'm just going to keep it that way. And yeah, that's unfortunate. Let me try another thing. I'm going to, nope, turn on Command U. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to slide it up this path. Then I'm going to put this guy kind of back in his original location. Do this, and I'm going to just use Smart Remove plugin feature by Astute Graphics. And do that. And, okay. For a second there, I thought it removed all my width work, but it didn't. Then we'll go back to the raw and unedited. We're going to go back to the width tool here, and we'll see if it behaves. Oh, it behaves so much better. So there you go. Another good reason to use plugins. Yeah, this tool can get a little wonky. That's just the way it is. This is getting a little tight here. I guess it's okay. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just diminish this curve. I'll just make it a little shallower or smaller. There. That actually looks okay. And then I'll pull this one out, and I'm just going to do it on the inside to add some thickness here. Do this one on the inside so it goes thick, thinner, thinnest, mid-thin, back to thick. Now I want it to go a little more diminished on this one. And this looks like it's another one it doesn't really like. Okay, well, let's Command Z to get out of that. I think we might have another redundant anchor point maybe. No, it just doesn't like it. So this is a good example of I want to use the width tool here, and then, okay, now it's going to behave. Okay. We'll just add thickness on both of these. Then it's going to go back down to thin. So we'll get, this is what I'm talking about it does wig out at times. And I think we lost our thickness up here. Let's re-add that. And we might have a redundant. No redundant. Okay. Let's try it this way. Okay, that way it works. So I'll go thinner here, like that. Then it gets medium. We'll go back to thick up here. That looks okay. I'll leave that as is. On this one, I'll make it get thicker here. Hold Option down, make it get thicker here. Go to this one. And wow, it really doesn't like these sometimes. So in general, it's a pretty okay. That one's wigging out. So I really have no reason why, other than at times you might have a redundant. See, I don't have a redundant anchor point, so I don't know why. And then it'll then start acting like it should. So no idea. All I know is this is the way it's been since day one. And when you just take your time, you can get something that looks good, but you're going to run into those things. And I don't want to, this is why I don't like all the social media influencers who do these reels and they show you like they're rounding it and they'll wag their finger like, no, that's not how you do it. And then they'll show, just use the width tool, and they make it look like, oh, you won't have any problem. They're done in 40 seconds. And that's just not the reality of Adobe Illustrator at all. It's unrealistic, in my opinion. I don't like that. So let's go. I think that'll look better, holding Option down. And now I just want to add thickness to this one. So I think I'll do it holding Option down to the outside. I think this one's okay. I think this one I want to get fatter like that. That looks okay. Maybe a little thinner on this one, like that. And then we'll go into, I don't even know what they call these on his Darth's breathing apparatus, but we'll get thicker here. I think that would look better. And then we'll get thinner down here. That looks good. And as it goes up to his cheek, we want the point of his cheek to be thicker. We'll add that. And then as it goes up into his eye, I'm looking at my Darth Vader reference, trying to decide if I need to, just trying to take cues from it. Okay, that looks good. But notice how this comes to a point. That's just the way it is. So, I mean, you could go like this and diminish that curve, but it's still going to have somewhat of a point there, as you can see. And I'll just come back and kind of edit that after we expand it. It's easier. I'm not going to worry about it. Let's do a few more, and then I think we have this pretty much done. I'm going to hold Option just because I don't want to enclose this area anymore. I think that's fine. And we'll add, oh, it's not going to like this either. Oh, okay, there we go. We'll add a little thickness there. That's good. And then as it swoops around the top to his left side, I think I'm going to make it just a little thinner up here. Like that. And then I want it to get thicker. So we'll add a little more thickness. Then I want it to be very thick here. Like that. And then it goes back to thin. Maybe thinnish. Hold Option down so the thickness continues into his neck. And then maybe it just gets thicker over here. We'll diminish it here so it goes thick, thin, thick. That looks good. We'll make this a little beefier so it swings into thin. Then we'll get thick here. I think I want to keep this somewhat thin because the interior, I don't want it to get too thick. Yeah, and then I'll hold Option down to do thickness to the inside because I don't want to touch this area down here. Maybe add thickness there. I don't like that now that I look at it. I think that's okay as is. And then we'll add thickness here. I'll hold Option down to do it on the outside. And then I'm just going to thin up this back side of the swoosh. And then we'll just add a little bit of thickness here, and it terminates into the thinness. So that's how we've added. Oops, there's a few areas I probably should have done more to. So let's focus on this. Kind of forgot this back part. So I'm going to add thickness there. Yeah, that looks better. And then this area like that. Let's zoom out so we can see everything. Deselect it. I think the nose here is a little thin. And the top of the nose. So these areas here. So let's go ahead and adjust those. I think this needs to be thicker. And we'll hold Option down to do the outside here. Zoom out. Nope, I think the top here needs to be thicker. This is getting too thin. I probably shouldn't have diminished that. I should have kept it at least the thickness I had it. So I think I'm going to just add to the top like that. Oops, don't copy it. Like that. Still trying to decide. I think these are too thin here because we have volume over here, so I'm going to adjust those. Yeah, this is too thin, so I'm going to grab the width tool. I'll go here, and I'll add thickness here. And I'll add thickness to this side. And once again, you do that by whatever side you pull out, hold Option. It'll only do it on that side. Once again, this coming to a point, but I'll fix that after we expand it. And I think that looks pretty, oh, now that I'm looking at it, his neck looks thin now. I probably shouldn't have done that at the bottom, made it so thin. So we'll go back here. And you can see it's wigging out because actually let's do it from this part where I actually placed it. Let's just do it thicker. Maybe that'll just give it a base that looks better. Yeah, I think that looks good. Now that I'm looking at it, I think we can beef this area up too. And make this inward part even thicker. That looks good. And then I'm really kind of second guessing some of these decisions. Like this looks, I'm just trying to balance out all those thickness, that with this, with actually these two would probably go a little thicker. I'm going to eat it this way. We got the space. I'm going to eat it this way. That looks good. And then I'll put a little more down here. And a little more there. And I'll go this way on that one. Okay. I like that better. It kind of balances out the thickness of the, well, okay. One more area. Sorry, keep kind of second guessing myself. Oops. Oh, I kind of did it there. I screwed it. I might come back and edit that area. I'm not going to bother with it in this, with the width tool like that. Okay. I think that's good enough. And so at this point, this is where I'll keep this as an editable width tool layer, and I'll go ahead and duplicate it. So I have the same art, and we're going to expand it. So let's just change the layer name. Expanding is like anything else. This is just still a stroke with the width applied to it. Actually, what all the width tool does is it creates, like if we have a stroke here, and we can beef up this, let's go 3 points. If we go to the width tool, we can go to this tapering, and it'll do that. That's all the width tool doing. It's just manually allowing you to control the profile of that stroke. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's select this. This is the profile. It looks almost like your regular heartbeat because it's mapping all of those areas we customize the profile. That's all it's doing. So the same way we'd expand a stroke with a profile applied to it, we'll do the same thing here. So we're going to go to Object and Expand Appearance like this. It'll turn all of this into a fill. No stroke exists now. But if we go into certain areas, like let's go into, oops. Do we have 2 layers? Nope. Let's zoom in on one, and you can see the corner. There's these overlaps. That's okay, because all we're going to do at this point is we're going to go to Pathfinder, and we're going to go Unite, and it will take care of all those overlaps. So all we have now is a fill. Now, there's some areas we'll want to improve upon now. So I'm going to zoom in here. Notice this is still coming to that kind of awkward point here. We'll first try to just smart remove it. And that looks pretty good, actually. If we go up here, you can see we have another one here. We can try to, well, first thing I'm going to do is use a plugin called Reposition Point Tool. And I'll move this into a tangent, and that looks great. So that's how I use that feature. I don't use that feature all the time, by the way. Another thing I'll do when I'm building, let's zoom out so you can see this easier, is I'll add an anchor in an approximate tangent here, like that. Then I'll select this one, I'll smart remove it, and it will approve all the curve of that shape. So those are the kind of improvements. They're just easier to do at this stage than just because the path tool, once again, at times can be a little wonky. So like here, this isn't bad, but we could add some rounding to it, and I think it'll look better. So those are all the things I'll do now, is I'll just kind of scrutinize all these paths. And for the most part, I think it looks pretty good. If we go into this area, I select on here. I think all of these look pretty good, but this is where I would go in and round. And you can do this using the corner widget in Illustrator. I just like using Astute's plugin, because I've used it longer. And I'll just go in and put these very subtle rounds here. Does it really matter? I think it just adds a nice, more organic aesthetic. It doesn't come to a razor sharp point. There's still a subtle curve on these, and these are very subtle rounds, so super small. So 0.213, so actually less than a hairline. A hairline is 0.25 of a point, so these are pretty small. But I think it does look better. Now, ultimately, if I wanted, let's say I wanted to do a wall print of this, on these I go a little bigger, like that. So anywhere it comes to a corner, I just put small little curves in there. Where it crosses over, I don't do those. Only where it's a path on its own do I put these curves in. Where it crosses over should kind of come to a point because those are straight edged areas. And like even down here, I'll put a small corner. And I'll just go from one side to another. I'll put one right here. We'll put one right here. We'll do one right here, like that. And I just follow the curve. So wherever it comes to a corner like this, I'll put these small little rounds. Where it overlaps, I just ignore those, ignore those, ignore those, come around here. Oops. How did I do that? I grabbed the bottom of the window. My bad. Raw and unedited. Like that. And then I'll put a little round here. We'll go down here all the way around. Put one here. One like that as it goes up into here, like that. Don't worry about where it crosses. This one will go here. Those are fine. This will have a subtle round here. Go into the nose. We'll add one here and here. This would have a shallow one. Put one there. Like that. And it comes to a term, the end. I think we got a few up here we missed, so we'll just zoom in on those areas here. Oh, no, that's crossing. We don't need that. But up here, we do. And I think we got a couple here. Oh, we got extra anchor points. Okay. Well, we'll go like this. At times it's easier just to create a new shape like this. Select both and go unite so it fuses together. Make sure it's a compound path. And then I'll zoom in. You can see we have an artifact here. Oh, it should go like that. So let's snap to that, create a new shape. Select these, unite, like that. And now we should be able to round that off like that. Just craftsmanship of paying attention to details. I think that ultimately separates the pros from those who just noodle around in design. A pro should understand these things and address them, even if a client would ever notice. That's not the point. You should notice. You're a professional, and you should want to dial stuff in like that to make your designs the best they can be. The fact that a client would never notice it doesn't matter. Okay. And just a few more areas here. Put one right there. And I think we have all of them now. Okay. So here's our art. That looks pretty cool. Now, Darth Vader isn't magenta, though, so let's go ahead and select him. We'll color him a process black here, because Darth Vader is a sinister, evil dude. Eventually has a redemption, obviously. That's why Star Wars storyline is so great. We'll go ahead and clone this. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to color because we're using a global color. So I'm going to establish probably 15% tint. And then we can just kind of offset it of sorts to make a drop shadow. So we'll just kind of reposition it like that, copy it, select the black, paste behind, just to get a nice little drop shadow. So that's always a cool thing to do. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to turn this layer on because we have space. We're going to paste it, and we're going to go white because this style works really great, unlike some style of design where if you just color it white and put it on a dark or colorized, or in this case, a photographic background, it won't look so good. This is actually going to work really well. Now, if we take this, we can go to Effect, and we can go down to Outer Glow. And on the Outer Glow, we can just go ahead and select, actually, we don't want black, we want white. So let's pick white, like that. And we don't want 75, maybe I want it to be somewhat subtle. So actually, let's do less subtle. Let's go 105, and we can preview it. And you get that subtle glow. It's almost like it's neon. So fun style to work in. This, I'm glad I took the time to create this. It had been sitting in my archive for about, oh man, it's like 7 years, I think, something like that. And at the time I sketched this for my 21-day drawing course on drawing challenge, that is, on LinkedIn Learning. I haven't even done a Darth Vader up to that point since I was in like middle school. So this was fun. Darth Vader's still a cool character. Hopefully if they do re-idealize the original series and recreate it from the ground up, they won't completely, bastardize Darth Vader, because I think they would sour the fan base if they did that. But the width tool, and this is where it's raw and unrehearsed, except for my outros, because I want to button up and not forget certain things. So the width tool, like many features in Adobe Illustrator, are developed and released, but not really updated on a regular basis. So all of those little wonky things you saw happen, that's been there since day one. And that's what Adobe's horrible at. They'll release a feature. Many times the feature is kind of half-baked. The width tool is actually pretty good and pretty refined with some bugs in it, and they've never fixed the bugs. And it's been quite a while since it came out. So some of the wonkiness you saw me run into should be expected. So don't get frustrated. Just take your time, go slow, don't rush it. The AI team, in my opinion, should have a group of engineers that do nothing else but improving existing functionality and tools. But as I've stated many times, the AI team has no one on their team that actually creates with Adobe Illustrator. So that's the fundamental problem with their beta testing and their development, in my opinion. Remember, the exercise files for each of my People Love Process movies can be found in the description below. The over-the-shoulder ones, though, are free. So make sure to go there, download it, and try to create Darth Vader yourself. That's how you improve. That's how you grow. So a big thank you to my channel members, subscribers, those who give my video a like. That even helps. And share a link to my channel with people you know who you think would like this content. That's what's going to help me grow this channel and be able to develop even more creative content that I can share with you. I encourage you to leave a comment or a question. I always respond to those, and I love to interact with you, the viewer. So until next time, thank you again for watching People Love Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.